welcome. This is Blue with Wunmi, where we talk about women in leadership. We're all about raising and empower female leaders. And with me today is Ife Freeman. She's going to be speaking of, she's a self-mastery and peak performance coach, and she's also a health and safety advisor. Welcome, Ife Freeman.
Thank you, Wunmi. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me here. Yeah.
The honor is mine to have you. And today we're going to be really talking about productivity and leadership, how we can grow our productivity. Oh, Ife, please, could you just tell us a little about yourself?
Okay, so my name is Ife Freeman. Like you said, I'm a self-mastery and productivity coach. I help women to actually create systems in their lives that helps them thrive and move forward towards the goals that they've set. And I'm a mom of two. I am married, and I also work full time. So, yeah, I think that's a little bit about myself.
Now that's interesting. Well, I know you have young kids, and then being married and working full time, and also you have your own business, and that's not all you do. That's not all you do.
No, it's not. So
I know you do much more than that.
Yes. So on the side, I volunteer with Kingdom Women Global Alliance, and I also volunteer with Visionary Compass. So I do lots of volunteering, basically. And at the same time, I've got a family. I've got two young kids. I've got a 12-year-old and a 5-year-old. I work full time. That's my Mondays to Fridays are pretty much booked. And yes, and I also work in church. I've got I serve in my current church at the moment. So yeah, that's lots that I do.
I want you to hear about the other things you do, because I'm like, wow, this lady is a Wonder Woman. How is she able to juggle all the stuff together and still able to do them excellently well and still be a leading woman in that field? So yeah, how are you able to juggle all those balls together without allowing them to fall?
So I guess maybe I should start with a story. When I relocated here to Australia, I had a 3-month-old, and in my heart, I really wanted to do a master's. I wanted to do a master's before I got married. So I put in for, at that stage, we could not afford to pay, for the master. So I put in for a certificate, which was more like a polytechnic degree, because I really wanted to work, right? So, and at that time, my excuse was that I had a little baby that had an erratic sleeping pattern. And because we had just moved from Nigeria, that was 7 hours behind, to a place, we just moved to being 7 hours ahead and all that. So we would be awake all through the night. And when every other person is awake or going to work, that's when we will go to bed. And that happened for more than 3 to 4 months. We were jet lagged for that long. But at the same time, I knew that irrespective of, being a mom, at that point, I really wanted to work. I wanted to get into the career field, and my degree from Nigeria was not accepted. So my first step was to actually skill up, right? So I had to put systems and things in place in order to ensure that I could submit my assignments and I could do things. So when you ask me that question about, what should a leader do, to be productive, I would say the first thing is being determined, have a determination, and ditch the excuses, because I could have relied on the fact I had an excuse. It was a valid excuse. I've got a tiny baby and things like that. But I was also determined. And my husband also mentions that about me, that once I'm determined about something, once I feel like I can do it, I usually put things in place. So the determination for me was the first thing. And because I really wanted it, I was determined, I could put other things in place. Yep.
Wow, thank you very much. I love the determination part. So the first thing is you need to be determined to get to your goals in place. So that is number one. That is something that you can't joke with. If you're not determined, it's easy to look for excuses, and we all have excuses. Excuses for not doing what we're meant to do, or for not going after our dreams, for not being successful. We have a
Yep.
lot of excuses, and as women, we have them abundantly, because just our life alone,
Yeah, I
just being a
agree.
mom is a full-time
Mhm,
job,
mhm.
right? So you have excuses. So you
Yeah.
spoke about putting systems and structures in place. Could you give us examples of those systems and structures that you had in place to help you to be productive?
Okay, so those systems that I created, and bear in mind that right now I'm talking about way back. This was about 11 or 12 years ago. So the systems I put in place was, I knew I had this assignment. So the certificates, they told me the two different dates that I needed to turn in a paper, basically two papers. And I looked at my child's sleeping pattern. Basically, we would sleep together in the morning. We would wake up. Then at about, I think when it was about 4 p.m. again, she would go to bed. You understand? Even if she doesn't go to bed at 4 on the dot, between that 4 and 5, she will go to bed. So no matter how tired I am, I would make sure that at that time, I put in some work and I'll map out things I want to do. Like I looked at the outline, I'll write out that this is what I want to do at this particular time while she's sleeping, because I couldn't do anything when she was awake. She was a very cuddly child. That's the word. I don't want to use the word clingy, but she was cuddly. So you always had to be with her. And when she was asleep, I had to map those things out against 1 week to see if I could move to, should I say, yeah, to a successful completion. And I did that. And I was able to achieve submission of my papers before the due date. And that was me working on very minimal time. But yeah, those were the things I put in place. I had to look at my current circumstances and I had to fit, what I needed to do within the gaps that I had.
Wow, thank you very much. Listening to a lot of women, when you're juggling a lot of balls, when you're doing a lot of things like you are doing, how do you handle not being overwhelmed? Because overwhelm is something that is common with women, and not only women, but then most times with us, because we are juggling a lot of balls. So how do you handle the overwhelm?
Oh, I love this question. I think for a while, till my daughter was about 5 years old, I didn't even know that I was overwhelmed. So yes, I juggled a lot of balls. I studied a lot. I was working. Even when I started work, I chose to still pursue the master's. So I did do the master's. So I was working full time. I was married. I was doing a master's. I had some guys that were living in my house. So even if my husband did understand that, oh, maybe food would not be 100% this week, I had guests that were consistently living with us. And at that stage, I had to learn to plug in things into my life, because I was this mom that was a grumpy mom. That was the word. So I would wake up at the usual time, study in the middle of the night, then wake my daughter up. By this time, she was way older, so that we could take her to school. But because she will now be doing things a bit slowly, it would upset me and I'll start yelling. And I will yell from the house. And I don't know, I had that particular attitude where I couldn't let things go. So if something gets on my nerves, I can repeat it a million times. So I would yell from the house till I dropped her off in school. And my wake up point then that made me understand, because yeah, I did not know that this was one of my signs and symptoms that I was overwhelmed with everything I was doing. I was accomplishing things, so that looked lovely to me. But because I was snappy, you understand, I was actually overwhelmed. So when I dropped out, there was a particular day that I dropped out. I was like, bye. I told her bye. She ignored me, just came out of the car, slammed the door, and walked away. And I was driving to work, and that attitude just kept replaying in my mind. Then at a point, I was like, Ife, you actually triggered this girl. You kept talking. Yesterday you talked. Today you talked. 2 days ago you talked. You understand? And you kept repeating the same thing. I'm not saying she wasn't doing what was wrong. She was. She was delaying. She'll be in the shower and she'll kind of like daydream. When you tell her to have the breakfast, she's kind of like slow. Then in the long run, you look at the time and I know I'm already running late to work. So I had to now go on a path of self-discovery. Like And within that part, you understand, of trying to discover how I could stop being a yelling mom, I registered for some courses, I did lots of things, but I now realized one major thing that I realized about me was that I was an introvert that, should I say, I obtained my energy from being alone. However, my life was now full of either being at work with people or being with my kids, or then, well, my kid, then my only daughter. So that was what was triggering me. So I started looking out for ways that I could actually be with myself. And by waking up early, you understand, as hard as it was, I would wake up early, do certain things, then just realize that she was repeating the same things, the same pattern, but I wasn't yelling. I'll just talk in a calm voice and say, you need to stop that, you need to hurry up, you need to do this. And once I say it, I let it go. So for me, it's about knowing, number one, you first have to know when you are overwhelmed as a leading lady, because sometimes, because we are moving and we are chasing a lot of things, we are juggling lots of balls, you might not even know you're overwhelmed. So right now, I know my triggers. I know, even if it's via text, if I send a text to someone or I send an email to someone and I reread the email and I realize that it's a bit snappy, I start asking myself those questions. Have I taken time to do something to charge myself? Have I spent time with myself? Have I read a book? Have I watched a movie? Because those are things that help me. Have I done this? Have I connected with God? Because those were things that actually kept me grounded and prevented me from going off the railing. Basically that. So as leading women, because we are always doing a lot, once we are self-aware of our triggers, number one, knowing what triggers you to being, overwhelmed, and two, also knowing your signs and symptoms. So you might not even notice the trigger, but at least when you notice that, for me, it's me being snappy with people. And most of the times, unfortunately, it's those that are around me that I'm snappy with, my family. So when I start noticing that, or my daughter calls me up on that, then I'm like, okay, now I need to plug in. But the greater part is now plugging in, understanding how my week is going to go, and then plugging into things to prevent myself from falling over. Basically that. So, yep, that's it.
Wow, that is interesting. That is so interesting. I love the way you talk about overwhelm. And that means many times we're overwhelmed and we don't even know. It's possible to be overwhelmed and not even know.
Yes.
And it's when you start seeing those signs. And many times we don't even know the signs. So number one is to understand what are the signs that you overwhelmed. What is things that you see that is not different, that you're doing that you don't really do before. So like what is the trigger? Understanding what the triggers are and looking out for them when you start seeing that, what is it that's triggering this behavior? And then three, knowing what you can do to avoid or to stop that overwhelm, taking care of yourself, more like, so going to them. So I have two questions I'm going to ask. That's the self-care, how a leading woman that is so busy, a visionary woman, how she can take care of herself. And then we'll talk about self-awareness, because most of the things you spoke about is being self-aware. So I'd like to know, what is the place of self-awareness in your productivity, in your, because you're a self-mastery coach, peak performance coach. How does you having self-awareness help you in your performance, help you in self-mastery, help you in your productivity?
I love that question. It's so good. Self-awareness helps you with your productivity. So let me also tell a story about this. When I first started volunteering with KGA, that's Kingdom Women Global Alliance, I noticed that with KGA, I was quite effective. I was efficient. I always hit my deadlines before the deadlines. However, I was a career person and I would be at work and I'm not feeling it per se. I'm not motivated to move. Like I feel like I felt like a double ganger. You understand? Like I'm in KGA and I'm running like, a hare, basically, or a cheetah. I'm at work and I'm a tortoise. Basically that. I wasn't moving quickly. And I had to ask myself why I was moving that quickly with, this particular ministry. However, with my career, I was a bit slow and all that. And I noticed that with this particular ministry, I understood the vision, right? So that's me asking myself questions like, you are someone who has lots of flows, and you have to ask yourself questions like, what makes me successful here? What makes me good here, and what's making me drop the balls here? So I realized that with my career, I didn't have this overarching vision. I had no idea what I was doing. I just went into it at that point because they didn't accept my engineering degree here. So I did health and safety, basically. So I was just there with the, you know what, let me just go because everyone goes to work, right? And I need a source of income. That was basically it. However, I had to sit back and start asking myself that, okay, so what's the bigger vision regarding this? What's the bigger vision behind my career? And when I discovered that, that made me move. That also made me discover my evolution gaps, like parts within my career that I needed to evolve, that I needed to grow and, you know, build myself to become an efficient person at work, so that I don't feel like I'm living a double life. Because sometimes that's how we feel. You are doing so well here and you're getting praises, and you're thinking about other parts of your life that you're not doing so well, and you're like, oh, maybe I'm not really this person. You understand? However, it was me bringing myself to that point of being aware and also transferring the principles of success from one side to the other side. Basically that. The other questions that you could ask yourself is when you fail at something. So there's really nothing wrong with failure, right? There's really nothing wrong with moving the goalpost initially. But when you ask yourself those questions consistently, like in a week, if I set up my schedule, and let me give that example. When I set up my schedule, at the end of the week, I ask myself, I look through my list and I ask myself questions like, okay, so you did this. It seems like you aced your week. You wrote down these 10 things that you wanted to do and you did all 10. Why? What happened this week that you could do all 10 so that I can actually apply it next week, right? However, if I find out that out of maybe the 10, I didn't do 7. So instead of sitting down and saying, oh gosh, I just have too much to do, you know, whining in self-pity, I ask myself another question again, that why wasn't I successful here? What happened? How can I prevent myself? How can I prevent this from reoccurring? And I'm not sure if it's the health and safety part, you know, because in health and safety, most of the times when an accident or an incident happens, you investigate to prevent, and you want to put measures in place to prevent that accident from happening again to someone else or to the same person. So that's the same method I applied to my productivity. And it's more like, it made me self-aware. It made me so aware of my strengths and my weaknesses, my shortfalls, and that's what made me to get on my phone and then put things like screen time, and you know, I put lots of things on my phone to just prevent myself, because I noticed what my major distraction was. So yeah, that's it for me.
Wow, thank you very much. I like that word, self-awareness, and the tools and things that you put in place to help you like stay on track. I think also asking ourselves questions. You know, when you were talking about health and safety, you want to see what happened. I remember that this adage in Yoruba that says that if a small child trips and falls down, they just keep going. But if it was an adult, they'll look back and see what's the thing that trips me, you know, that tripped me, right? So I think it's just us being conscious and being intentional. Like going through and see what it is that's making me not to perform the way I want to perform, and that is a big chunk of self-awareness. Just asking yourself the questions. You know, one of my coaches told me that self-awareness is the beginning of self-mastery, of self-discovery. So when you are self-aware, that's the first thing, because if you don't know who you are, then what are you going to be working on if you don't understand yourself?
That's good. I like that. I like that particular comment about, you know, self-awareness being the beginning of self-mastery, because that's so true. And that's so good.
Thank you very much. And then I was going to talk about the self-care, because you touched on it briefly when you were talking about overwhelm and how to help yourself. So how are some ways that you helped yourself to take care of yourself with all the balls you're carrying, and you know, so just share that with us.
Okay, so number one, I found out that I'm a music person. I love music, and the way I discovered this is I've forgotten what I was talking to. We don't have a dishwasher here. A dishwasher is a standard thing, right? In most homes, we don't have a dishwasher. And one thing that overwhelms me, my house can be clean. However, there are dishes in the sink, because in my head, I feel like dishes equates to cockroaches in the house. So if there are lots of dishes in the sink, for some reason, it upsets me. So I noticed after a while that anytime I plug into music, that's once I have my headphones on and I'm listening to music, I could have my dishes, two sinks full, because I have two children who somehow keep, eating and, tossing things in the sink. And then I'll be able to wash without actually feeling that I am doing work. You understand? So I found that music was a very strong, the word is charger for me, you understand? And I think I learned that from immersing our circle. Having music as my charger, that was one of the things I discovered. So most of the time, I intentionally during the week, Monday mornings as I'm driving to work, I make sure that I have music plugged in. Sometimes at work, I have music. I have my headphones on, I'm listening to music. And aside from that, I started buying things like even at home, I've got speakers, I've got headphones, things that actually helps me, to be charged. And there are other things that I love doing. I love watching movies, right? So occasionally, there was this time in December that I had the whole month off, and my kids were still sent off to vacation care, because then it was, it was school holidays. I sent them off to vacation care. And that day I sat down and I was like, yes, I am going to watch a movie today. Like I had planned it that today, on this particular day, I'm going to watch this movie. I'd seen how long it was going to take. So I watched a movie, and afterwards I did other things. So as a leading woman, you should know first what revives you, what re-energizes you, and then consistently, should I say, plug it in. So for me, things like movies, for some people, it might be traveling. And instead of giving, and like I said, instead of giving that excuse that I can't travel, I don't have the money, or I don't have the time. I think I read it somewhere with Michael Hyatt that he was saying, make sure you plug in those holidays from the beginning, else you would never do them. So for me now, if I need to travel in December, I've already booked my tickets by February. I'm that planned and organized so that everything that I need is already in place. Number two, there is no excuse. By the time I get to December, I can't say, oh, you know what, I'm not going anymore. I've paid already since February, so I have to do it. So that things that you can actually put in place once you know who you are. So, I'll give an example. My husband is a people person. He recharges by being around people, and he goes out. Basically, we go out together. But for me, I'm that person that likes reclining and being by herself. So I also find time to actually do those things that energize me. And I do it before I get overwhelmed. So I don't wait till I see the signs and symptoms like, oh, if you know what, it seems like you're already getting here. I do it consistently. So it's a part of my weekly plan. So I think that women should look at those little things that you can infuse into your weekly plan. Then you can have that massive holiday that you're looking for. Maybe at the end of the year or mid-year, plan towards it, but you should have something that actually charges you, and you have to do it weekly. Yep, that's it.
Wow. So you plan self-care in your week, right? Having planned for self-care in your week. That is beautiful. And just planning ahead. So your holiday is part of your plan, taking care of yourself is part of your plan. And I can also even hear the fact that self-awareness is also helping you to plan to help yourself, because now knowing that music energizes you, you can plan to have music in your ears while you're cleaning the house, and makes it easier for you, Well, one thing I try to do is when I'm on the phone, I can talk a lot. I love to talk. I'm a people person. So talking like energizes me, doesn't stress me. So when I'm on a long call, I try not to just sit down and click a call. Because of that is time. I'm either looking for a place to sweep, kitchen to clean. So like using that my talking time while I'm feeling energized and connecting with somebody else, and I'm doing something at the same time. And that's just like killing two birds with one stone. Wow, thank you very much. Thank you. I really like this. So now let's talk about self-leadership. because you can't be a leader, you can't lead yourself. So what
Yeah.
would you say is the relationship between self-leadership and leadership? And yeah, how can we actually lead ourselves better?
Okay, so my belief is that self-leadership has to do with you having, so leadership is having a vision and a team that you are leading towards that vision. So the team, so effective leadership means that I've been able to pass on my vision to the team. The team they are owning their parts of the vision, right? And they are running towards the goal. You understand? I have an effective team that can actually run towards the vision, and all those parts are working together. Now, when it comes to self-leadership, it means that for number one, I understand what the vision is. So I can't pass the vision effectively to the team without having an understanding of the vision myself, and also being able to, should I say, run towards it. I should have been able to run first before I add people on, right? I should be able to run myself effectively. Then I can now invite people into the boat with me. So if I cannot drive, basically, although in Nigeria, this is different. If you can't drive, you can get a driver, right? If I can't drive, I can't teach you how to drive. If I don't know where we are going, we can't be within the same car and say, and I'm like, I think we are going here. And then I expect you to be able to get to wherever we are going. You understand? Driving the car. I should be able to empower you to drive. And that comes from empowering myself so that I am so clear on what's required and what the bigger picture is. And I am also running towards it so that if someone within my team does not really understand what it is, then I can break it down to them. So that's the way I see it. So for instance, I'm going to use, should I say, I'll use being at work too. Because yeah, I think I've used lots of examples of the home front and all that. So being at work, initially I was the coordinator for safety and health reps, right? I understood what the reps had to do. And the first step for me was being able to work with them every time they became reps. If I had a new rep, I would go work with them, carry them through, should I say, take them through an induction. After taking them through an induction, their first task as a rep, that's completing a workplace inspection, I ensure that I accompany them for it, and I show them that these are the hazards, these are the easy things, are the things that you would identify in your area. So make sure when you walk into this room, make sure you first take a look at the lights. Are the lights effective? Is it too cold or is it too hot? Ask the people within the area, things like that. So I give them tips. And this is me empowering the rep to run afterwards without me. And that's the same thing, you understand, that you have to do. You actually have to be able to lead yourself. You have to know those things, right? But you don't 100% have to have all the knowledge. There might be a part of your vision that there's someone that you've employed that is so good at it that they can actually do it. Employing someone that can complement your weaknesses. So it's not really about you being able to do everything as being the leader, right? But at least you know what the vision is. The vision is clear to you. You know all the moving parts of the vision. So you know how to direct people, even in the parts that you are weak in should I say, in moving them towards the goal. Yep. So that's it.
No, thank you very much. I really love how you merge the self leadership with being a leader. And what I was just listening, hearing you, is the fact of that a leader being able to cast the vision to the people that leading and also empowering them to be able to run with that vision. Wow, that is interesting. Thank you very much. I think the last question I have for you is just any tips you have for a leading woman that's juggling so many balls. What are the tips you have for them to be more productive?
I love that question. I'll say the first tip, which is something that I have learned to do. Previously, I was the one-man army that would run by myself. I would clean the whole house myself. I would do different things. I just wanted to do everything myself because I felt like I could not achieve if I was not in control. But I had to learn to delegate. There's this thing that you call 80-20 rule, where you're like 20% of your efforts can actually bring about the results you want. So 80% delegate. And the good thing about delegation, like you already have a team. Do not look at people within the team that, okay, probably I delegated to this person and the person did not achieve it. Number one, you might need to break down the steps. And I would have to use my daughter as an example because I spoke about dishes, right? And how dishes affect me. I had to tell her at a point that, you know what, when I was your age in Nigeria, I was already doing dishes. So here is how to wash it. Here's how to wash a plate. I showed her. And the first time when she washed plates, I still had some crusty part on the plate. So I had to call her back and say, hey, here is this. Maybe the dish, when it was in the sink, it was already dry because we are in summer. You understand? It's hot. There's no humidity. So everything is a bit dry. So next time, turn on the tap, leave it to soak up for, maybe 5 minutes, do the other dishes, and then you would be able to wash this effectively. I've also had to teach her to ensure she rinses the soap off properly because those were things that I found out that she was doing. So I wasn't getting upset and frustrated with her making those mistakes. I had to show her again, time and time again, step by step, this is how to do it. And sometimes you might need to step it out. Number one, turn on the tap. Number two, get the soap. Number three, you understand? Like things as basic as that. You might need to do it to be sure that you've effectively delegated and this person gets it. You understand? So as a leading woman, as a leader, you should learn to delegate and also teach those that you're also empowering them, basically. And when my daughter started doing the dishes, she would see her younger sister, pick a cup, drink water, drop the cup, pick a second cup, and because she knows she's the one doing the dishes, so she had some ownership of that, and she reminds her sister, oh no, you use that cup, please use the same cup you've been using. You understand? Things that she would not naturally not have done because it was mom doing the dishes then. And it's the same thing at work. When you empower someone and the person has the ownership of that particular task, then the person will consistently run with it, whether or not you push them. So I would say delegate. Look into what you can delegate. There are lots of things that I ended up getting people to do just so that I am not doing it, and I can move forward on the more important and should I say important tasks. They are not urgent, but they are important. So I'm not, should I say, killing fires consistently. Yep.
Wow, thank you very much. That has been so amazing. All your points is like, okay, wow, this is we've gotten great tips from you. Thank you. Delegate. And I know that many times we want to do things ourselves because maybe the person you want to delegate to, you're not sure how fast they would respond to you, or you want to be in control. I think it's just that I'm not sure if they would do it well. It was John Maxwell that says that if somebody's going to do the task 80% as much as you do it, that it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Let them do it. Now, you don't have to wait for them to do it 100% before you allow them to do the task for you. So thank you very much. And it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Any parting words?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So my parting words basically is just, ensure that you are charged, ensure that you are consistently aware, and that, you are aware of yourself, and that you also put plans in place to achieve what you want to achieve. Break it down into tiny steps and just keep moving towards it. But the major thing is that ensure that you are consistently charged, irrespective of whether you feel overwhelmed or not. Yep.
Thank you very much. And a big thank you to our audience today. Thank you for joining us. I hope you've learned, and I'm sure you've learned a lot of tips from our guest today on productivity and the leading woman. So I look forward to having you again, Ife, and then having your audience again another time on the next episode of Bloom with Wunmi, where we'll be sharing stories on how you can raise, how we are raising and empowering the female leaders. Thank you, and God bless. Bye.
Bye.